My fiancée told me I was her plan B. If no one better came along, so I let her find out I was secretly dating her boss. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for the first time in my life I thought I had it all figured out. I was in love, had a great job, and my future seemed like it was heading in the right direction. Then I met Lisa. It was in college during the first semester of my junior year. She had this energy about her. Radiant, unstoppable. We hit it off right away. The chemistry was undeniable, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. We spent hours talking about everything, from our childhoods to our future together. There was always this feeling, a quiet certainty that we were meant to be. We made plans, grand plans, for the future. I'd always been the good guy, the dependable one, and I thought I was everything she needed. I prioritized her needs, made sure she felt loved, always went out of my way to support her. Whether it was staying up late to help her with assignments or waiting for her to finish her late shifts, I was there, and for a while, it felt perfect. At least, I convinced myself it was. Lisa was ambitious, always climbing higher in her career. She had dreams that were bigger than either of us, and I respected that. But, looking back, I realize I ignored the signs. It was always about her career, always about what she needed to do next. Long hours, late nights at the office. I'd sit in silence, waiting for her call, for her to give me some attention. But I brushed it off. She was just driven. She had goals, and I understood that. That's what I told myself anyway. I told myself that she loved me as much as I loved her. But there were moments, small, subtle moments where I couldn't help but wonder if maybe she was starting to see me as less of a partner and more of a convenience. Still, I didn't want to admit it. I wanted to believe the best. So I kept putting her first. I didn't realize, though, that the longer I let it slide, the more I was losing myself. The more I was giving her, the less I was getting back. And I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. Things started to change slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. I was so focused on keeping the relationship together, on proving to Lisa that I was the partner she needed, that I failed to notice the little cracks in our foundation. Lisa's late nights turned into early mornings. Her phone seemed to always be buzzing, and I didn't think much of it at first. She was busy, sure. She was a rising star in her career, and I was proud of her. But there were nights, too many of them, where I would just sit in the living room, watching TV alone, with only the sound of her typing in the other room to keep me company. It became routine. I'd ask if she wanted to go out for dinner, and she'd reply, "I've got a deadline, maybe tomorrow." When I brought up how much I missed spending time with her, she'd get defensive. "I'm doing this for us," she'd say, but the words felt empty coming from her lips. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was always this nagging feeling deep down that something wasn't right. I started to feel it in the way she looked at me sometimes, like I was more of a responsibility than a partner. Or in the way she'd sigh when I asked about her day, as if she couldn't even muster the energy to pretend she cared. She didn't have time for me anymore, not in the way I needed, but she still had time to tell me how important I was, how much she appreciated me. It didn't make sense. How could you love someone so much but not want to spend time with them? And then came the moment that made everything click. The moment I should have seen coming, but didn't. We were at a friend's party, a casual get-together, nothing special. Lisa had been talking to her coworkers all night, laughing, flirting with them. I didn't mind at first, but when I found myself alone in the kitchen, watching her from the doorway, I saw it. Her smile, the way she leaned in too close to one of her colleagues, the way her hand touched his arm. It wasn't just friendly. It was intimate. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but deep down, I knew. I tried to ignore it at first, but the image wouldn't leave my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing, her hand on his arm. I kept asking myself if I was being paranoid, if I was just overthinking things. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. I just didn't want to admit it. It wasn't until a few days later that the truth came crashing down. I was sitting in our living room scrolling through my phone when Lisa came home late again. She looked flustered, hurried, like she was trying to hide something. She didn't even look me in the eyes when she said, I'm exhausted. I'm going straight to bed. But, as she walked past me, I caught a glimpse of her phone on the coffee table. Face down, as always. And for some reason, I felt a pull, a gut instinct telling me to just look. It wasn't like me to snoop, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I picked it up, my heart racing. I was prepared to talk myself out of it, but then I saw his name. The guy from the party. Chris, it said on the screen. There were several messages. Messages that should have been private. I missed you tonight, one of them read. Can't wait to see you again soon, said another. And there, at the bottom of the screen, was a photo of her smiling, leaning in for a kiss on his cheek. I couldn't breathe. I felt my chest tighten, my hands shaking as I set the phone back down. This wasn't just a harmless flirtation. It wasn't just a friendly conversation. It was something more. I could feel the betrayal like a weight on my chest. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? How many times had I been played for a fool? I had always put her first, sacrificed so much of myself to make her happy, and this is how she repaid me? By sneaking around behind my back, playing me for a fool. She came out of the bedroom a few minutes later, unaware that I knew, but I could barely look at her. The anger bubbled inside me, but I stayed quiet, afraid of what would happen if I confronted her then and there. I couldn't hold it in much longer. As Lisa sat down next to me, flipping through her work emails, I could feel the anger building up inside me, a storm I couldn't control. She looked so calm, so oblivious. I watched her for a long moment, taking in the sight of the woman I had loved, the woman who had now become a stranger to me. How could she act so normal when I knew the truth? How could she smile at me, pretend everything was fine, knowing what I had just found out? My hands clenched into fists at my sides, my heart pounding. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to say something, even if it tore me apart. "Lisa," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. She looked up, startled, as if she hadn't expected me to speak. "Who's Chris?" Her face instantly paled, and for a moment she froze. She didn't speak, didn't answer right away, and in that silence I saw everything. The guilt, the fear, the realization that she couldn't hide from me anymore. "Why are you asking about him?" She replied, her tone defensive, almost as if she didn't believe I knew the truth. She tried to brush it off, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I had seen the messages. I had seen the pictures. I know about the messages, Lisa. I saw your phone. I saw everything. My voice broke as I finally let the words spill out. "You've been lying to me, haven't you? All this time, you've been seeing him behind my back." She looked away, her eyes shifting toward the floor. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to explain. It was as if she knew she couldn't justify what she had done. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what else to do. I've been unhappy too, and I never wanted to hurt you. I thought you were just safe. I thought you'd always be there." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Safe. That's all I had been to her. A backup plan. A safety net in case something better didn't come along. I stared at her, the betrayal settling deep inside me. All the moments I'd tried to make her happy, all the times I'd been there for her, they meant nothing. She'd never loved me the way I thought she did. She was using me, keeping me around because I was convenient, not because she truly cared. "I guess I was just your plan B, huh?" I whispered, the weight of it crashing down on me. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. Because deep down, she knew it was true. Her silence said everything. I had never felt more alone in my entire life. The woman I had sacrificed so much for, the woman I had trusted with my heart, was standing in front of me. And all I could feel was emptiness. The worst part, she wasn't even sorry. There was no apology, no remorse, just the cold reality that I had been nothing more than a placeholder for her until someone more exciting came along. I didn't know what to do, where to go from there. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tear everything down. But instead, I just stood there, numb. My mind was spinning, replaying every moment where I had been the one to compromise, to put her first, to always be the good guy. And for what? So she could betray me in the worst way possible? "I need some space," I finally managed to say, my voice hoarse like it wasn't even mine. I turned and walked toward the door, not knowing where I was going, but needing to get away from her, from the lies, from the world I thought I knew. I left the apartment that night, the cold air hitting me like a slap to the face as I stepped out onto the streets. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to escape. I walked for hours, through streets I didn't recognize, until my legs were sore and my mind was even more fractured than before. It felt like the whole world was crumbling, like everything I had built was a lie. By the time I came back, it was nearly dawn. The apartment felt like a prison, with her still inside, pretending like nothing had happened. I couldn't face her again, but she was there, sitting on the couch, looking at me with eyes full of guilt, yet still so detached. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to fix things. I didn't know what I wanted." Her words stung more than anything. She didn't know what she wanted? What about me? Hadn't I been there for her all this time? Hadn't I done everything to make her feel loved, to make her feel safe? And yet, she was the one who didn't know what she wanted. I was just a side piece in her game of uncertainty. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. I just stood there, the weight of the betrayal settling deeper into my chest. It was in that moment I realized something I had been blind to before. Lisa wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't the woman who loved me. She was the one who had used me, and I had allowed it. I had been her backup plan. But now, I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice. Not anymore. "I think we're done here," I said, my voice cold, final. And, for the first time in a long time, I walked away from her. The days that followed were a blur. I stayed at a friend's place for a while, not really knowing what to do with myself. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, every thought drowning me a little more. Lisa's face haunted me. Her eyes, the way she'd looked at me with that pathetic mix of guilt and indifference, it stayed with me, gnawing at my insides. I had thought she was the one. We'd talked about a future together, built so many plans. And now it was all shattered, all because of one simple truth. I wasn't enough for her. I kept replaying her words over and over again in my head. I didn't know what I wanted. It was as if she couldn't see how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed. But in the end, I wasn't enough. I was just a fallback, a comfort, something to keep her stable until she found something better. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the realization that I had been living in a fantasy. I had been so sure that everything was real, that we were in this together. But I had been blind, so blind to the truth. The worst part, she never even tried to fight for me. She never once begged me to stay, never once admitted how wrong she was. She just let me go, as if it was all a casual mistake. It was like I meant nothing. The love I had given her, the devotion, it had been worthless in her eyes. And that crushed me. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I couldn't just let her walk away with no consequences. She had done this to me, and now she was going to feel what it was like to lose something real. She wasn't going to get off easy. I had always been the nice guy, the one who let things slide. But not anymore. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to sit in the shadows, nursing my wounds while she carried on with her life, pretending everything was fine. If she thought she could walk away without a second thought, she was wrong. I started planning. I wasn't going to let her get away with using me. But it wasn't about getting back at her just to hurt her. No, it was about showing her exactly what she had lost. I had to make her realize how much she had taken me for granted, how easily she had thrown me away. I wasn't her plan B anymore. I was going to make her regret every moment she ever took me for granted. I was going to show her what real loss felt like. The next few days felt like I was living in two worlds, one where everything was falling apart, and another where I started putting my plan into motion. I told myself it wasn't about revenge, but the truth was, it was hard to ignore the satisfaction I felt every time I thought about her realizing what she'd lost. Lisa had always been the one in control, the one calling the shots. But now, the tables were turning. I started by focusing on myself. I got in touch with some old friends, reconnected with people I had put on the back burner for so long. I hit the gym harder, pushed myself further than I ever had before. It felt good to finally be doing something just for me. Lisa's absence was no longer this huge hole in my life. Slowly, I began to rebuild. But the real change happened when I ran into Sarah. She was one of Lisa's coworkers, someone I had never really paid attention to before. But she always seemed to have a smile for me when we bumped into each other at parties or social events. She wasn't someone I'd ever considered as more than just a friend of Lisa's. But the night we ran into each other at a bar, everything shifted. She was different than I remembered, confident, charming, and unexpectedly kind. We started talking, and one thing led to another. The more I spoke with Sarah, the more I realized how easy it was to connect with her. She didn't have any baggage, no hidden agendas, no complicated emotional games to play. It was refreshing. The spark was undeniable. I wasn't expecting it, but the connection was real, and it felt like a breath of fresh air after everything that had been suffocating me for months. The next few weeks were a blur of late-night texts and secret meetups. Every time I spent time with Sarah, I felt more alive, more like myself. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this happy, genuinely happy. And Lisa, she had no idea. I kept my distance from her, avoided her at all costs. I couldn't bear to look at her without the bitterness rising in my chest. She had made her bed. It was time for her to lie in it. One night, as I was leaving Sarah's place, I saw Lisa's car parked outside my apartment. My heart sank. She was waiting for me, probably expecting me to just forgive her and let everything go back to the way it was. I walked up to her car, my mind racing with what to say. She rolled down the window, and her face looked like it had been through a storm. Her eyes were swollen, red from crying. She looked lost. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice full of uncertainty. I took a deep breath, staring at her for a long moment. I wasn't sure what I was expecting from her. I wasn't sure what I wanted to hear. But all I could think about was how much I had changed since that night. I wasn't the same guy who would drop everything to run back to her. I wasn't that guy anymore. "I don't think there's anything left to say, Lisa," I replied, my voice steady but cold. "You had your chance and you chose someone else. Now, it's my turn." I turned and walked away. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't help but replay everything in my head. My conversation with Lisa, her pleading eyes, her desperation. But instead of feeling conflicted, I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just emptiness. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt free, but Lisa's words kept echoing in my mind. "Can we talk?" I had to remind myself that there was no talking left to do. There was nothing she could say that would change what had happened, nothing that could undo the damage. She had made her choices, and I wasn't going to let her walk back into my life on her terms. I wasn't her safety net anymore. I wasn't anyone's backup plan. A few days passed, and I focused on moving forward. The energy I had once poured into trying to fix things with Lisa was now redirected into my own life. I was out with Sarah more, enjoying the simplicity of her company. She wasn't complicated like Lisa. With Sarah, everything was light and easy. We laughed about dumb things, talked about dreams we had, and shared moments that didn't feel tainted by hidden agendas or betrayals. But as everything seemed to fall into place, I noticed something that chilled me to my core. Lisa had started showing up at the places I frequented. She was showing up at my gym, running into me at the coffee shop down the street, even managing to be at the same bar when I was there with Sarah. It started to feel like a game to her. She wasn't just trying to get back together. No, she was trying to win. She was trying to prove to herself that she could have me back whenever she wanted. I didn't need her to see me with Sarah to know what she was doing. I could feel her eyes on me, watching, waiting. One evening, after I left Sarah's apartment, I walked to my car only to find Lisa standing there, waiting for me. She looked different. Her hair was down and she was wearing that dress I loved. She had that look on her face, the one I couldn't resist before, the look that always made me want to drop everything and give her my attention. But not this time. "I don't know what you think you're doing," I said, trying to stay calm, trying to avoid falling into the trap again. "But this isn't a game, Lisa." She stepped closer, her voice softer, almost pleading. "I'm not trying to win, I'm just trying to get you back." Please, we can fix this. I'll do anything. Just give me one more chance." I could see the desperation in her eyes, and for a split second I almost felt pity for her. But then I remembered everything. The lies, the coldness, the way she had treated me. I wasn't going to be her plan B anymore. Not for her. Not for anyone. No, I said firmly. "We're done, Lisa. I'm done. You had your chance." She stood there, frozen, as if my words hadn't hit her yet. Then a flicker of something I hadn't expected crossed her face. Was it anger? Was it regret? Before I could say anything else, I turned and walked away, not looking back. That night, as I drove back to my apartment, I felt the weight of everything finally settling in. It had been weeks since I'd seen Lisa. Weeks since I'd allowed myself to truly confront the reality of what she had done. And yet, it still felt like I was living in a haze, like I wasn't fully awake until that moment, when I walked away from her for good. The finality of it hit me harder than I expected. The anger I had been holding on to, the bitterness, it all seemed to dissipate as I stepped into my apartment. I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt empty. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the walls, the memories, the things that once felt like a future. How had I allowed myself to be blind for so long? How had I ignored the little things, the signs that were staring me in the face every day? I had let her turn me into something I wasn't. I had let her manipulate me, all for the sake of her career and her selfish desires. And all along, I had been so blinded by love that I couldn't see it. But now, with Sarah in my life, it felt different. It felt like I was starting over. I didn't have to play second fiddle to anyone anymore. I didn't have to fight for affection or attention. With Sarah, it was easy. With Sarah, I was enough. I started to believe in the idea of rebuilding, not just my life, but my sense of self. I didn't need Lisa to validate me. I didn't need her to tell me I was good enough. I was already good enough, and if anyone couldn't see that, they didn't deserve to be in my life. But as time went on, Lisa's attempts to get back into my world didn't stop. She sent texts. She left voice messages, begging, crying, telling me how sorry she was. At first, I ignored it all. But one night, as I was lying in bed, unable to sleep, I picked up my phone. The message from Lisa read, "I never meant to hurt you. I've never loved anyone the way I loved you. I don't know what I was thinking, but I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. Please, just give me a chance to make it right." I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. A part of me wanted to respond, to reach out and tell her how much she had hurt me, how much I had given, only for her to discard me like I was nothing. But as I sat there, phone in hand, I realized something. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need her apology. I had already moved on, with Sarah, with myself, with the life I was building. So I deleted the message and turned off my phone. There would be no more waiting, no more looking back. This was my life now, and I was taking control of it, whether Lisa liked it or not. The next few weeks were a strange mix of clarity and chaos. On one hand, I felt like I was finally starting to breathe again, as if the heavy weight I'd been carrying for so long had been lifted off my shoulders. With Sarah, things were simple, easy. We spent time together without the baggage I'd had with Lisa. Every laugh, every conversation felt like a fresh start. For the first time in ages, I felt seen. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Lisa was still lurking in the background, waiting for a chance to re-enter my life. She was everywhere. Texts, emails. Even some of our mutual friends began to ask about me, as if I were the one who had wronged her. It felt like a constant reminder of everything I'd fought to get away from. One day, I was out with Sarah at a cafe, just having a normal afternoon. We were sitting outside laughing about something silly. I didn't even remember what it was anymore. I felt like I was finally getting my life back on track, moving forward with someone who actually cared. But then, as we were finishing up, I saw Lisa walking across the street. She spotted me instantly. Her eyes locked on mine, and I could see the pain in her face. The same look she'd had when I walked away from her weeks ago. For a moment, I froze. The anger, the hurt, everything I had been suppressing hit me all over again. Lisa wasn't supposed to be here. Not now. Not like this. She walked over to our table, standing there awkwardly. Sarah, who hadn't seen Lisa before, looked at me confused. She was a little uncomfortable, and I could tell. But she didn't say anything. "Can we talk?" Lisa's voice was strained, almost pleading. I looked at her, then at Sarah. It was strange. I wanted to be civil, to handle this maturely, but at the same time, I felt the rage building inside of me all over again. I turned to Sarah, offering a small smile. "I'll be right back," I said, then stood up and walked a few steps away from the table. Sarah didn't argue. She just watched me go, her eyes full of concern. I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for bringing this to her. "Lisa, I've already told you everything," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. "There's nothing left for us to talk about." "I know," she whispered, looking down at the ground. "But I'm not asking for us to get back together. I'm asking for you to forgive me." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Forgiveness. Was that what I was supposed to do? Was I supposed to forget everything? Forget how she'd used me, how she'd lied to my face, how she'd treated me like I was nothing? I shook my head, anger surging in my chest. Forgiveness isn't something you can just ask for, Lisa. It's something you earn. And you don't get to earn it just because you're sorry now. She took a deep breath, wiping away a tear that had escaped. "I know, but I had to try." I looked at her, the woman I once thought I would marry, and felt nothing but exhaustion. There was no anger left, no hate, just a deep, overwhelming sense of relief that this was over, that I was done. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Lisa," I said quietly. "But it's not going to be with me." I turned to walk back to Sarah, who had been watching from a distance. As I sat down, she looked at me with concern, but also a softness in her eyes that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. "Is everything all right?" she asked gently, her voice full of understanding. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in so long. "Yeah," I said, looking into her eyes. "Everything's going to be just fine." And for the first time in months, I believed it. In the weeks that followed, I started to realize just how much weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Every day felt like a step further away from the chaos of the past, and with Sarah by my side, it was easier to breathe again. She never pressured me to talk about Lisa, but I found myself opening up more than I ever had with anyone else. She was different. No games, no hidden agendas. It was like I was learning how to love and trust again. But despite the peace I felt with Sarah, a part of me still couldn't shake the lingering feeling of betrayal. The emotional scars that Lisa had left behind were deep. I realized I wasn't just healing from a breakup. I was healing from years of manipulation, of being treated like I wasn't enough. One evening, I was out with Sarah at a small diner, our usual spot. We were sharing a milkshake, laughing at some silly joke she made about a reality TV show. The atmosphere was light, easy. I looked at her, thinking how lucky I was to have someone so understanding. And then, as if the universe was trying to remind me that everything was far from over, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it and froze. It was a message from Lisa. Just one line. "I'm pregnant." The words were like a punch to the gut. I felt the room spin around me, my stomach twisting into a tight knot. It wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But as I stared at the message, I could feel my heart drop. I didn't know what to do with that information. All I could think was, why now? After everything, after all the damage she had done, why was she telling me this? Was she trying to get me back in her life? Was she using this as another tactic to keep me tethered to her? I sat there in shock, the phone trembling in my hands. Sarah must have noticed because she reached across the table, her hand touching mine. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. I looked at her, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. I didn't want to bring this into my life again, didn't want to ruin the peace we had. But the truth was, this wasn't just about me anymore. Lisa was involved. And if she was telling the truth, I didn't know what that meant for the future. Lisa just sent me a message, I muttered, my voice sounding foreign to my ears. "She's pregnant." For a long moment, Sarah didn't say anything. She just looked at me, her expression calm, steady. She wasn't angry or upset. She was just there. It was comforting, the way she didn't panic, didn't ask a million questions. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice quiet but strong. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. It's not your responsibility anymore." Her words hit me harder than I expected. The truth was, she was right. It wasn't my responsibility. I didn't have to fix things for Lisa. I didn't have to be the one to make everything right just because I had always been the good guy. I looked down at the phone in my hand and took a deep breath. I realized then that no matter what Lisa had done or what she said, I was no longer bound by the past. I had the power to choose my future, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into carrying the weight of her decisions. "I don't know what to do," I said, the uncertainty in my voice clear. "You don't have to figure it out right now," Sarah replied softly, her thumb brushing over my hand. "Take your time. You've been through enough already." I nodded, grateful for her presence, her calm, and in that moment I knew one thing for sure. I had made the right choice to walk away. Whatever happened next with Lisa, whatever she was going through, it was no longer my burden to bear. I had a future ahead of me, a future where I didn't have to be anyone's second choice. The days after receiving Lisa's message were a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and, to be honest, some unexpected relief. Lisa's pregnancy news, as shocking as it was, didn't bring me the chaos I thought it would. Instead, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of a relationship that had already died long before. The more I thought about it, the less I felt connected to the old life we'd shared. It was like I had finally unlocked the door to freedom, and there was no turning back. I didn't reach out to Lisa after her message. I knew that whatever she needed, it couldn't be from me. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. I was with Sarah now, and the world felt different. Real. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't living in the shadow of someone else's mistakes. But even with this clarity, the situation with Lisa lingered in the background like a dark cloud. I couldn't avoid it. I had to deal with it eventually, and sooner rather than later. I couldn't keep pretending that this was all over, not with the reality of her pregnancy sitting heavy in the air. One evening, after a quiet dinner at Sarah's place, I got a text from Lisa. It wasn't a long message, but it was a direct one. "We need to talk. It's about the baby." I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, the screen flickering back at me, taunting me. I could feel the weight of it sinking in. No matter how much I wanted to ignore her, no matter how badly I wanted to move on, this was something I had to face. I looked over at Sarah, who had been sitting next to me on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She noticed my hesitation, the way I was staring at my screen. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. I took a deep breath, running a hand through my hair. "It's Lisa. She wants to talk about the baby." Sarah's face softened, but she didn't say anything right away. She just reached out, taking my hand in hers, her fingers wrapping around mine in quiet support. She didn't push me to answer, didn't make me feel guilty for the emotional mess I was caught up in. "I think you should talk to her," Sarah said quietly, her gaze never leaving mine. "But only if you feel ready." I wanted to feel ready. I really did. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could face her again. I didn't know if I was strong enough to hear the words I knew she was about to say. Words that would somehow tie me to her, to the past, forever. "I'm not sure I can," I admitted. "I've already given her everything I had to give. I don't know if I have anything left for her." Sarah squeezed my hand, offering me a reassuring smile. "Then you don't have to give her anything. You've already given her your time, your love, and she threw it all away. Don't let her keep taking from you." Her words echoed in my head as I stared at the message on my phone. I knew she was right. Lisa had taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take more, especially not now. But I still wasn't sure if I could just walk away from the situation completely. There was something gnawing at me, a feeling that I couldn't leave this chapter unfinished. "I'll talk to her," I said, finally making a decision. But I wasn't doing it for Lisa. I was doing it for me. I needed closure. And I needed to take control of this situation once and for all. I didn't reach out to Lisa right away. I needed a day to think, to really process everything that had been happening in my life. The past few months had felt like an emotional roller coaster, and I wasn't sure I could handle one more twist. But Sarah's words stayed with me. You don't have to give her anything. That stuck in my mind as I sat in the quiet of my apartment, my mind whirling with thoughts about the future. The next evening, after dinner, I made the decision. I had to face this. For me, for my future. I owed it to myself to close this chapter completely. I sent Lisa a text. I'm free tomorrow evening. We can talk then. The message was short, but I knew it would be enough. The response came quickly, almost too quickly. Okay, thank you. I didn't know what I was expecting. I had no idea how this conversation would go, but as I prepared to meet her, I tried to remind myself of what I'd learned. I wasn't going to let her guilt or manipulations pull me back into the life I'd left behind. The next day, I met Lisa at a small cafe. It was a neutral place, a space where I could have the conversation without the weight of our shared history pressing down on me. When I walked in, she was already seated, looking down at her coffee. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her face softer somehow. It was clear that she had been through something, but I couldn't let that sway me. I had my own healing to focus on now. Hey, I said, sitting down across from her. She looked up, and for a brief moment there was a flicker of that old sadness in her eyes. Hey, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. You said you wanted to talk about the baby. So let's talk, she nodded, taking a deep breath. I know you're angry with me, and I know I don't have any right to ask anything of you. But I need to tell you what's going on. She paused for a moment, her hands trembling slightly. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this pregnancy, but I can't do it alone. I felt the words hit me, but I didn't let them show on my face. The truth was, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. She had hurt me so much, and now she was asking for my help. It felt like she was asking for a lifeline, but I wasn't sure I could throw her one. I understand that you're scared, I said quietly. But this is your choice, Lisa. I've already given you everything I had, and you took it for granted. I can't be the one to fix this for you. Her eyes filled with tears. I know, I didn't mean for things to turn out like this. I never meant to hurt you, but I've made so many mistakes, and I don't know where to go from here. I took a deep breath. Lisa, I'm sorry for everything you're going through. But I'm not the person you need. You don't need me. You need to find a way to be strong on your own. She looked at me, the tears welling up in her eyes, but this time she didn't say anything. She just nodded, as though she finally understood the distance between us. The distance I had created. I think this is the last time we'll talk like this, I said, standing up. I wish you the best. I really do. But I've moved on. I have to move forward, and I can't keep looking back. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between us. And then, just as I was turning to leave, I heard her voice, barely above a whisper. Goodbye. It was the closure I needed. I didn't turn back, didn't look over my shoulder. I just walked out of that cafe, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I had said everything I needed to say. I had set my boundaries. And, for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally free. When I returned to Sarah's apartment that night, I told her everything. I didn't hold back. Sarah listened, offering her support without saying a word. When I finished, she just smiled at me, a smile full of warmth and understanding. You did the right thing, she said softly. You deserve peace, and you're going to find it. And with that, I realized she was right. I had found my peace, my strength. I wasn't the person I was when I met Lisa. I wasn't the same man who had been used, discarded, and manipulated. I had grown. I had healed. And now I was ready to embrace the future, knowing that I was enough, just as I was.